Welcome back to Hot Air, your favorite queer podcast where we spill the tea, stir the pot, and occasionally hand you the emotional support you didn't know you needed. And today's topic is control. Yes, we're going there. We are talking about that big, bad word that everyone loves to throw around, controlling. But here's the thing. Control is not just that toxic ex who told you what to wear. No, it's actually way more complicated, way more nuanced, and way more relatable than we'd like to admit. Today, we're going to unpack the spectrum of control. We'll talk about what it means to be controlling, what it feels like when you have no control, and why your nervous system is basically throwing a tantrum in the Trader Joe's parking lot when somebody cuts you off. Trader Joe's is going to be my go-to a lot during this episode because that place is buck fucking wild. We're also going to go through some examples of why some people are more controlling than others. And I'm also going to provide you with some tools that I've been learning in therapy to help manage your need for control and the stress, anxiety, and frustration that comes along with it. I'm actually quite relieved that I'm taking a day to not be so focused on the complete undoing of human rights, which I am sure I'll be back to on my next episode. But I needed a breather from screaming about the Trump administration. And you know what? That is a perfect example of control because I have none when it comes to those things other than my voice. And that drives me absolutely wild and sends me into a spiral. So I am relinquishing a little bit of control, flipping it around, and hopefully helping us all work together. So, like I just said, let's work through this together, and hopefully we'll come out on the other side a little bit stronger, a little bit wiser, and a little bit less controlling. So, let's hit it. Part 1. What people think control means. Let's start here, because I know when I say the word control, half of you immediately went to that person who micromanages your life. The partner who needed to know your location 24/7, or the boss who CCs themselves on every single email you send. And yes, that's one version of control, but that is not the whole story. We're taught to think of control as like a cartoon villain trait. Someone else pulling the puppet strings. But in therapy, I learned that control is actually a very broad spectrum. On one end, yes, you have manipulation, domination, the kind of control that feels very suffocating. But on the other end, control is also boundaries, structure, safety, the very things that let us feel sane and secure. So before we start pointing fingers and screaming, "You're controlling," maybe we need to ask, which kinds of control are we actually talking about? And also, which kind of control do we actually exhibit? So let's talk first about control in relationships. This is the classic one. Relationships are where this shows up loud and clear. Think about it. One person wants to decide how the other dresses, what friends they hang out with, maybe even what career they pursue. That's the textbook definition, right? But most people who are controlling in this way aren't doing it because they're evil masterminds. They're doing it because they feel unsafe, insecure, or out of control themselves. And I was with someone for a very long time like this. And I feel like I fully understand why he was like that. It did not end up working, but every little thing he wanted to control. And I knew the whole time that it wasn't because he was an evil mastermind. It wasn't because he was a bad person. It was because he had not worked on himself and his own issues to acknowledge that type of control. It was literally everything. But that doesn't mean that those people are bad people. They maybe just not have taken the steps to look inside and figure their shit out. Now, therapists love to say that control is a coping mechanism. And yes, that sucks when you're on the receiving end of it. I hear ya, loud and clear. But it's also a reminder that this stuff is rooted in fear. Fear of being abandoned, fear of rejection, fear that if they don't hold the steering wheel, the car is going to crash. And let's be real, we've all had our little controlling moments. Do not act like you've never said, "No, babe, you're not wearing those shoes with that outfit." Guilty. Hello. We've all done little things like that. We all dip our toe into the control pool sometimes. Sometimes more often than other times. So, what does control look like on the daily? Let's swing it to the other side. These are situations that we can't control that happen more frequently. These are the ones that make us want to rip our hair out, like traffic, long lines at Target, the Wi Fi crashing during your Zoom call, or your neighbor's dog barking at 2 a.m. I too was surprised to find out that my reaction to those situations are a form of wanting to be in control. None of these are personal, but they feel personal. Your brain is like, this is an attack on me, specifically me, and I will die if this doesn't stop immediately. We take it really personally. Why? Because our nervous system hates uncertainty. Control, even the illusion of control, makes us feel calm. And when we don't have it, we feel trapped. That's why you freak out in traffic, even though you logically know that honking your horn is not going to clear up the 405. And for those of you who do not live in SoCal or LA, the 405 is the worst fucking freeway on the planet, no matter the time of day. It gives me anxiety just talking about it. But that's your body trying to claw back control of something completely uncontrollable. Here is the little psychology nugget. Psychologists call this the locus of control. A locus is essentially the reason, the source, or perceived location of that control. People with an internal locus believe that they make things happen. People with an external locus believe that things happen to them. And when you're stuck in line at the grocery store behind somebody who wants to pay in nickels and dimes, your locus of control is basically on life support. And there are sneakier forms of control too, like perfectionism. That's just trying to control how people see you, or people pleasing, which is really just trying to control how people feel about you. Even avoidance is a form of control. You don't want to open that scary email, don't want to check your bank account. You're not lazy. You're controlling the situation by not even looking at it. I do that almost every day. It's wild how many behaviors we label as something else when deep down, it's really about control. So, how do we flip the script? Here's one of those reframes I've been learning in therapy. Control is not inherently bad. We all need some of it. You need control to budget your money. You need control to set boundaries. You need control to get out of bed in the morning. But too much control, you choke yourself and everyone around you. Too little, you're spiraling, waiting for life to just crush you. Like I said, it is a spectrum. It is not a villain. And the trick is learning how to dance in the middle. Like, how do I hold on to enough control to feel stable, but loosen my grip enough that I'm not white knuckling it through life? And to help you with that, I have a few practical tips, aka hot air homework. And there will be more of these later in the episode as well. There is actually like a lot of repetition today, but I think repeating things is how we're going to absorb it. So we'll get to more tips, more tools, more examples later, but let's just make this useful for now. Here are some ways to work with control issues, whether you're the one dishing it out or choking on the lack of it. You can start by naming it. When you catch yourself spiraling, just say it out loud. This is about control. Just naming it takes away some of its power. Easy. Name it. Or breathe before you boss. Are you about to tell your partner how to load the dishwasher? Well, breathe. Ask yourself, is this about cleanliness, or is this about me trying to feel secure? Or maybe you have some unresolved issue with thinking you know how to do things better than everyone else because your parents were always critical of you and bossing you around. There are a lot of things to consider here, and we will talk about that shortly. You can also try shifting your locus. If you're stuck in traffic, instead of raging about what you can't control, focus on what you can. Put on some good music. Put on a podcast, preferably this podcast. Duh. Also, try loosening the grip. Try an experiment. Deliberately let something be imperfect. Don't edit the text 5 times before you send it, unless it's a rage text, then definitely edit it. Don't rearrange the throw pillows again. Notice what happens when you just let go. I have been doing this a lot lately, and it's not easy, but once you just start allowing things to be a little less than your version of perfection, because perfect does not exist, you realize that it's okay to live like that and loosen that grip. Not everything needs to be in tip top shape. And usually the only person that notices that it's like that is you. And everyone else already thinks that like what your bare minimum is already perfect to them. So, with all of that being said, next time somebody calls you controlling or you're spiraling in the line at the grocery store, wink, wink, Trader Joe's, remember, control is not one thing. It's a whole entire spectrum of behaviors, feels, and coping strategies. The goal isn't to eliminate control, it's to find balance. And also remember, you may not control the traffic, but you sure as hell can control whether you blast Beyonce while you're stuck in it. I don't remember if I said part one for part one, but we're moving on to part two. Where does control come from? Let's ask the big question. Why do we even need control in the first place? Like, what is that itch in our brains that makes us go from a Zen monk to a feral raccoon the second that someone cuts us off on the freeway? That is another example I'm going to use a lot because I get so lit and so insane when I see people driving erratically and being like inconsiderate. It just drives me up the wall. So the traffic thing is a lot about what I'm going to talk about. But let's talk deeper first about the psychology of control. So the need for control is actually hardwired into us. Our brains do not like unpredictability, as I said. In fact, science shows that uncertainty is more stressful for humans than straight up bad news. Like, think about waiting for test results. Very easy example we can all relate to. The waiting feels worse than just knowing, right? That's why your brain desperately is searching for a way to control the uncontrollable. Sometimes our imaginations are worse than the facts. So, where does that come from? Surprise, surprise, a lot of it comes from childhood. If you grew up in a home where things felt unpredictable, maybe your parents were fighting, maybe moving a lot, maybe you just never knew what version of mom and dad you were going to get that day. Your little kid brain said, oh, control is safety. If I can control the environment or control the people, then I can protect myself. And to help you identify that, here's a few types of control that is specifically tied to upbringing. First, we have micromanagers. I don't like you because I am one of you. If you grew up in chaos, you might become the person who has to plan every detail of the vacation or double check every email 700 times. That's your nervous system going, if I leave it up to chance, something bad will happen. And spoiler alert, that's not actually true, but it feels true. I plan my trips like a wild man. Every day, every hour is accounted for. Tours, reservations, all the things. Like it's a lot. But my vacations are always great. So whatever. I'm gonna micromanage those vacations. I'm just not gonna micromanage other people. Then we have avoiders. Some people swing the complete opposite direction. If you had caregivers who controlled you too much, you might avoid control altogether. You hate rules, you resist structure, you don't even want to plan dinner until you're starving at 10 p.m. because to you, control feels suffocating. And then we've got controllers in disguise. Here's a spicy one. Sometimes what looks like helping is actually controlling. Like, someone saying, I'll just do it for you, or let me fix that. It feels like kindness, but underneath, it's about them not feeling safe unless they're steering the ship. So, a question that I have been asking myself and my therapist is, why do I get angry when I can't control things? That road rage, that meltdown at Zara because there's only one register open and there's only ever one register open, that fight with your partner over something that is so ridiculous. It's not about the traffic or the line, or doing the dishes. It's your nervous system screaming that you feel unsafe, not being in control. Again, basically your body sees lack of control as danger. Your brain kicks in to fight or flight, even when the threat is just a Karen with 25 coupons in the self-checkout line. It's a primal instinct that is just built within us. You are not crazy. What you are is human. So what do we do about it? Here's the fun part. Again, the work isn't about eliminating the need for control, because as I mentioned, control can be helpful, right? The work is about noticing when control is really about fear and when it is not. Next time that you feel that frustration starting to bubble up, ask yourself, am I actually in danger? Or Does my body just think I am because I can't control this specific moment? That little pause, that simple little pause, is therapy gold. And the second step, which I hate, but it works, is surrender. Learning to sit in discomfort, reminding yourself that the barking dog or the traffic jam, or again, the fact that your partner loads the dishwasher wrong, and yes, there is a right way to load the dishwasher, those things are not life threatening. You will survive, you will be fine. They're annoying, but they're not going to take away your safety. That is the entire reframe. Safety first. If it's not going to affect your safety, who gives a rat's ass? So, if you grew up in chaos and you now find yourself planning everyone else's lives, or if you lose your mind when things don't go your way, just know it's not about being a control freak. It's about your nervous system trying to keep you safe the only way that it knows how. But it doesn't have to be that way forever, right? Some of us just accept this and go, well, this is just how I am. It's not really a fun way to live. Just start by looking at your actions, checking in with your feelings, and point out the moments that feel chaotic that actually are not. Recognize the pattern, give yourself compassion, and slowly teach yourself that letting go does not mean danger. It just means life. And because that is all a lot easier said than done, I have a whole section of helpful tools that I've both learned in therapy and via research. So, part 3, the tools. I think it's time to land this plane, turbulence and all, with something a little more practical. And we can never have too many tools to cope, right? How the hell do we deal with this need to control? We've gone over a few things, but it's kind of like, how do we solve the puzzle? How do we actually practice letting go without feeling like the world is falling apart? It's one thing to know you're controlling, and we've gone over those tools of acknowledgement, but it's a complete other thing to actually do something different in the moment. So let's get into those tools, those exercises and strategies that you can use in all kinds of situations when life feels like it's testing your patience, which certainly happens a lot. So tool number 1, we kind of already went over this. Let's go over it again, but it's catching yourself in the act. Step 1 is awareness. You cannot loosen your grip if you don't realize that you're holding on for dear life. So next time that you are feeling frustrated, ask yourself these 3 little questions. Maybe write them down somewhere so you can remember them for later. Maybe if it's in traffic when you're getting pissed off, write them on like a little sticky note, stick them on your steering wheel so you can look down. So question number 1 is, am I trying to control this right now? Second, is this something I can even control? And third is, what happens if I do not control it? Sometimes just pausing to notice that you're in that control mode is enough to give you that breath of space and turn that feeling of stress right around. If you're trying to control it and you can't control it, what's the point in trying? You're stressing yourself out for no reason. The second tool is the 3 breath reset. And this is the most underrated, overplayed, but also most effective tool, your breath. Here's the trick, okay? Easy peasy. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, and exhale for 6 counts. Why don't we do it all together, okay? We're going to inhale 4, hold it, exhale. I can't do that seriously. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Do that 3 times when you feel your inner control freak is gearing up for battle. This is not just woo-woo. This isn't craziness. It's just breathing. We do it all the time. It literally tricks your nervous system into calming down. You're signaling to your brain that you're not in danger. It's just Trader Joe's, the most anxiety-ridden store you will ever enter. Never forget it. Tool 3 is rewriting the narrative. So let's get psychological again. A lot of control issues come from fear of chaos, fear of being unsafe, fear of repeating past experiences. So here's a mindset reframe you can use. Instead of I need to fix this, I can handle this. This shifts you out of panic mode and into confidence mode. Because control isn't always about the situation, it's about trusting whether or not you can deal with whatever is coming up during and after. Tool 4, when you can't control external stuff, like traffic lines, and delays. Try the distraction technique. We touched on it earlier. Listen to a podcast. Me, again, turn me on. Call a friend on the phone. Call your parents if you haven't talked to them. Or play like a silly game on your phone. Don't play the game on your phone if you're stuck in traffic. But like, again, if you're at Trader Joe's. If you can't move in that line, at least shift your focus to something else. Come up with something that you enjoy doing in these moments of your need to control. Tool 5. When people don't act the way that you want, like partners, coworkers, or kids. This is where boundaries and acceptance come in. Instead of micromanaging, try asking yourself, what do I actually need here? Maybe it's not about how they are folding the laundry or hanging up the towels, but maybe it's about just wanting to feel supported. Communicate that instead of nagging about the placement of the dishes in the cupboard. Usually we're distracting ourselves from what our real needs are. Tool 6, when your own emotions feel out of control, practice name it to tame it. Say out loud or in your head, I'm just feeling anxious, or I'm feeling frustrated. Just naming the emotion specifically is going to help your brain process it, and it takes the edge off. It's also kind of like that distraction technique. You're giving it a name, so you're no longer focusing on it, you're focusing on how you're titling it. Tool 7, what about when life throws you chaos, like job loss, breakups, health scares? That is the big picture stuff that usually we have absolutely no control over. And the tool here is grounding. Go for a walk, feel your feet on the floor, write a journal entry that starts with, right now, I know, blah, 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 and then list the facts. It's about finding an anchor instead of trying to control this entire storm itself. Anchor yourself in the moment and the things that you can control. Tool 8, which is my favorite tool, is putting your emotions on a scale. This is really my go-to. When you start to feel that lack of control, however it manifests, it might feel like anxious butterflies, it might be tension on the steering wheel, it might be a hot flash of frustration all over your entire body. When you start to feel it, allow yourself to feel it for a hot second, and then register where it sits on a scale from 1 to 10. Register where those emotions land on that scale. This helps me every single solitary day, not even exaggerating, because I'm shifting my focus from a situation that is potentially leading me to commit a crime. And now I'm focusing on how I'm actually feeling emotionally and physically. And before I can spiral, I'm paying more attention to this sliding scale of numbers than I am my irritation. I'm giving my irritation a number. And I also kind of realize I'm not at a 10, I'm at a 3. So maybe it's not that deep. Think about the scale. Maybe your scale is 1 to 5. Maybe your scale is 1 to 100, depending on the human. Feel your feelings, put it on a scale. You'll likely realize it's not that deep. And our final tool, tool 9, practice letting go, literally. Here's another fun exercise. Why did I say it like that? Here is another fun exercise from my own therapist. So every day, practice letting go of something small, like let someone else pick the restaurant. Don't correct someone when they mispronounce something. Leave the bed unmade, although pretty sure it's proven that making your bed starts your day off great. So like try making your bed, but like if you miss a day, whatever. These are tiny acts of rebellion against your control reflex, and they help train your brain that letting go does not equal disaster. Part 3. Let's wrap this up. Control isn't the villain, and letting go is not weakness. It is about balance. It's about knowing what's yours to carry and what isn't. And the more we practice these little exercises like pausing, breathing, reframing, grounding, and yes, even letting the damn forks face the wrong way, the more we build trust in ourselves and the world around us. You just got to think, does it actually matter that that fork is turned around? Is that going to affect you the rest of the day? And if it is going to, you need to talk to your therapist ASAP. Because that fork is not going to affect your relationships, your money, all the other important things in life. At the end of the day, you're not supposed to control everything. You are just supposed to live it. Live your life, release that control. And that is it for today's episode of Hot Air. If this episode has been resonating with you, please share it with a friend who might also be white knuckling their way through life. And remember, sometimes the hottest air we release is a sigh of letting go. Isn't that cute? Isn't that so cute? But really, we all know a control freak. So maybe send this to them and help them start working on releasing some of that control. And of course, Do not forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod. You can also watch the full-length episode of this and all my other episodes on YouTube if you are a visual human. And visit my website, which you can find in the show notes, hotairwithjoshuarobert.com, to submit your listener stories, basically any tales you feel the world needs to know that we can relate to, maybe your therapy takeaways, maybe how you battled control, all those fun things. So I'll see you next week. Stay fabulous, stay fierce, stay free, and stay sane as best as you can, I beg of you. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next Tuesday.